Hello and welcome to another modeling video. This is Alan from the Mono Man at YouTube. I will be 3D printing, finishing and painting the YT-2400 Outrider from Star Wars Shadows of the Empire video game comic book from an important part of my childhood in 1996, which shaped my taste in sci-fi. Quite a few 3D files exist on Thingiverse across the internet, which were downloaded, chopped up and various parts shared to do a much smaller 1/300 scale rendition that would fit my hand and join the mini Star Wars vehicle collection by Bandai. What was very annoying across all the reference material and models that details, panels, proportions and layout of parts were all different, and there's no standardized version unless you refer to the canon appearance from recent Disney media. This is being produced on the Anycubic Mono X 3D printer. It's quite small, so smaller versions would be able to do the same thing. Had to mix the vat of very stale Anycubic resin. The model was printed horizontal with a lot of underside supports at 20mm or about 40-ish grams. This was preferable as the hull was in one piece, though I utilized support, landing gear and gun turrets from a much larger model and attached it separately to prevent breakage from the printing process. With the slow retraction speed, the model came out crisp, but was so small the design did not encounter for the panels to come through and would require rescribing. The size and scale was worked out using a Wikipedia search for stats via Google and a scale model calculator. The print came out quite successfully and was removed off the bed without any hassle. It was cleaned of any wet raw resin through a two-process of washing and soaking in dirty alcohol, a cleaner alcohol, and any remnant chemical via running water in a metal pot. All alcohol was reclaimed for future use with other prints. It is naturally cured under the sun for several hours at the front of my property that left a soft firmness that can be worked with tools, sanding, nub removal, but not as hard as overly cured via a UV source. It was regrettable of not angling it at both the X and Y axis, and I got a little bit of stepping. The reason for a print is reconnecting with an old childhood friend and getting back into the hobby. I wanted to show him the power of 3D printing by producing a model that he could not buy from any hobby shop or online. This was his choice and I ran a copy for myself as we both played the game together. The panels were scribed, the supports easily tore off and the remnant of the old gun removed with a saw. The newer gun was put in its place with super glue, plus the attachment of the supports underneath. I did attempt to try to sand as much of the stepping as I could, which lessened it a bit. Puttied a few areas, including resin drain holes that I placed to prevent the model splitting after curing. From prints to assemble was an incredibly quick process, though a lot of time was placed in rescribing the panels. Being a hard material, this would hurt the hand with a tungsten point, and done in a few sessions. Once done, I threw a few coats of automotive filler primer via Airbrush. A very large majority collective of modelers are definitely Star Wars fans and would see a lot more builds out there, but the most intimidating factor in undertaking these is painting, getting the color, shading and more importantly detail right, and this can be a bit troublesome for rattle can hand painter and airbrushes in choosing the right grey, though my preference will always be shading and building up from a medium dark grey all the way to the lightest grey off-white possible, and being very playful in shading and shadowing where small panels don't have to be touched up and hand painted at a much later date. As I'm fairly comfortable around an airbrush these days, this process is very playful, fun and relaxing. There is no need to be intimidated as long as you stick to a sludge wash and the lightest grey possible, even a couple of greys if you're feeling daring. The results will always be fairly decent. I used 4 shades of grey to achieve this finish. For a very easy and quick go with Tamiya accent colour, I cut that in half with a further amount of oil based or gum turpentine spirits, and this flows far more gently and dirties it less. I used other filters and washes for a bit of colouring and rust on some panels, and touched up the windows and other elements with a paintbrush and black matte. The reference sheet shows multiple panels with a little orange here, a little yellow there, some grey slightly different, sort of like multiple materials and parts of different starships coming together, and this was replicated with pigment or filters being applied on those particular panels just to break it up a bit. After a suitable period time to dry and chemically cure, the whole project was dusted with a matte clear paint by Mr. Colour in a couple of layers in very fine dust waves to dull it down in a dead look, as reminiscent as humanly possible to anything Empire era in Star Wars. Some ships are very glossy and chrome, and some are quite old, aged and filthy. The canon of some of these can go up to more than 100 years in service in space. Here we go, the completed model. If I was to find this in a hobby shop on the shelf to build and finish, purchasing it would make me very happy and thrilled. Downloading it and 3D printing it in hand was exciting, but once it's painted, I'm absolutely in the mood. That ship that I'm so intimately knowledgeable about and played so many times, fighting and exploring the exterior, entering the inside of it, plus flying the actual ship in the Battle for Skyhook in the final level of Shadows of the Empire. I know a lot of people try to live through their childhood via buying old toys off eBay or reliving cartoons, TV shows, that sort of thing. But if you get a very heavy hit of nostalgia, love painting and interested in tech, a 3D printer is a very interesting rabbit hole to go down to. This build is ever so slightly rough around the edges, especially with the stepping, but I'm pretty happy with it and thrilled to line it up with the other ships I have and many more to build. I assure you many more obscure end of the Star Wars universe and Shadows of the Empire will be funneled into this channel over the years. This concludes the build. Thank you very much for watching. As always, until next time, stay tuned for further content. If you ever dig around Thingiverse and STL Finder, the amount of Star Wars and sci-fi content is immense and worth exploring. Reference material is always in the description section down below. If you wish to learn or see more about operating a 3D printer, I have a playlist on this YouTube channel. Catch you guys later.